Welcome back to our YouTube channel, The Book Digest. In today's episode, we're diving into a powerful and practical summary of Financial Freedom by Grant Sabatier. It's a book that pretty much flips conventional financial wisdom on its head. So let's get right into it. All right, look at this number, $2.26. Now, that's not just some random statistic. That is rock bottom. Back in 2010, this was everything, literally everything, author Grant Sabatier had to his name. I mean, it's a shockingly small number, right? But believe it or not, this is the starting line for one of the most incredible financial comebacks you'll probably ever hear about. And Sabatier makes a really important point here. He argues that his situation, it wasn't just his failure. He saw it as a symptom of a much bigger broken system. You've got an entire generation, right, drowning in student debt with wages that are just flat. They're not keeping up. So that old playbook, the one where you work for 40 years and then retire, it wasn't just looking unappealing anymore. For a lot of people, it was mathematically impossible. So the big question is, how on earth did he go from basically zero to over $1 million in just 5 years? Well, it all kicked off with this one huge, mind-bending shift in his philosophy. It was all about focusing on your time, not your money. Okay, so Sabatier just flips the typical advice completely on its head. Most of us, right, we're taught to treat money like it's this super scarce resource that we have to guard with our lives. But he says, nope, that's all wrong. He argues that time is the real scarce resource. Think about it. You can always make more money, but you can never, ever get back a single second of your time. So the big takeaway here? Stop trying to optimize your life for more money and start optimizing it for more time. And once you start thinking that way, it naturally leads to a completely new definition of one of life's biggest goals, retirement. It stops being about hitting a certain age, and it starts being all about hitting a certain number. And this is such a key distinction to make. Financial independence, in his book, is not about sitting on a beach sipping cocktails for 50 years. I mean, maybe for a bit, but really, it's about getting to a point where work becomes a choice, not something you're forced to do to survive. It's about having the freedom to go after projects you're actually passionate about without ever again having to worry about where that next paycheck is coming from. Now, to make this massive goal feel, actually achievable, Sabatier breaks it all down into these 7 clear levels. And it's honestly a brilliant move because it takes this vague, overwhelming dream and turns it into a concrete, step-by-step roadmap. Every time you hit a new level, whether it's just covering your bills or building up a real emergency fund, you get this huge psychological win. And even more important, it gives you more options, more control over your life. Okay, so what's the actual nuts and bolts of this whole thing? How do you speed up the journey to freedom? Well, this is where Sabatier's advice really takes a hard turn away from that old school playbook. He lays out this kind of 3-pronged attack. So you optimize your spending, for sure, and you invest as much as you possibly can, as early as you can, but, and this is the big one, the most powerful lever you can pull, the one that has no ceiling, is increasing your income. I mean, think about it. You can only cut your expenses down so far before you're just miserable, but there is literally no limit to how much money you can earn. And we're not just talking about some hobby that brings in a little extra pocket money. No, he sees side hustles as these powerful strategic tools to break free from depending on a single job. The whole idea is to use the skills you already have to build new income streams, streams that could eventually grow big enough to completely replace your main salary. And that is true freedom. He's also super direct about something a lot of us avoid: salary negotiation. Most people, he says, leave a staggering amount of money on the table over their careers. Just think about it for a second. A few thousand extra dollars you negotiate early in your career, invested year after year, it compounds into this absolutely massive sum by the time you're older. It's one of the highest return things you can possibly do with your time. So, as you're making more money and investing it, what's the actual target? What number are you shooting for? Well, Sabatier is a big fan of the 4% rule. The basic idea is that once your investment portfolio is 25 times what you spend in a year, you can safely pull out 4% of that every single year to live on, theoretically forever, without even touching the original amount. So that 25x number, that's your goal. That's financial independence. But piling up all this cash, that isn't really the point. The money is just a tool. The real prize, the actual goal of this whole journey, is something way, way more valuable than dollars and cents. So let me just ask you this straight up. Do you know what you really make per hour? And I'm not talking about the number on your paycheck. I mean your true hourly wage. Because when you start to factor in all the hidden costs of your job, the time you spend commuting, the money you drop on work clothes, the hours you need just to de-stress when you get home, your actual wage is often shockingly low. And man, when you start to reframe every purchase not in terms of dollars, but in the hours of your life it costs you to earn that money, your spending habits will change almost overnight. And look, this isn't about living some miserable life where you deprive yourself of everything. The goal isn't to cut every single possible expense. It's all about what he calls mindful spending. The idea is to be absolutely ruthless in cutting costs on stuff that doesn't really bring you any joy, so you have the freedom to spend extravagantly on the things that you absolutely love. It's all about making sure your money is actually aligned with your values. And finally, the book gets to what might be the most important question of all. What happens after you've won the game? I mean, what do you actually do with yourself once you don't have to work anymore? And this is where the book gets really honest. It turns out that reaching financial freedom isn't the finish line. It's actually the starting line. See, the real work is building a life that's full of purpose and contribution and curiosity. The richest life you can have is one of chosen engagement, and financial independence is simply the tool that gives you the time and the freedom to build it. So we'll leave you with the book's ultimate question, which is really the question this entire journey is designed to help you answer. If you never had to work for money again, if money was just completely off the table, what would you really want to do with the incredible gift of your time?